Okay, let's talk about IU basketball. Let's get really negative, and then let's get hopeful for the Purdue, and then let's get a little bit speculative about the Washington Commanders. Let's talk about IU basketball. They need a hard reset. When I say hard reset, you probably could assume what I mean. I don't like calling for people's jobs. I don't want to say that someone should be fired. I don't want to say that someone should not be employed where they currently are anymore, right? Like that from a fundamental human level, that feels wrong. But whatever the solution would be, IU basketball needs a hard reset. They lost to Illinois 85-69 the other day. It was a hyped-up game, a ranked opponent at Assembly Hall. This is, to me, was the most hyped-up game of the year. And I said that to a couple people that potentially were going to consider going to the game. I said that I think this will be the most hyped-up game. I think when you get there, this will be the biggest game of the year, right? Because Indiana still, we didn't know they were bad yet. There's a lot of ranked teams that are going to come to Assembly Hall this season. Maybe Purdue's the one exception in terms of the Purdue game in Assembly Hall will still be bigger than this one, even if Indiana, their season falls by the wayside. But regardless, this is a ranked opponent when we think Indiana still has a chance of maybe playing their way into the top 25, playing their way into the NCAA tournament. And now that they've lost this way, it's honestly in the cards for IU to not win more than one more conference game throughout the year. I was looking at the schedule and I was seeing what the worst case scenario could be. And after we saw how Washington played against Purdue last night, that home game might not even necessarily be a win. I think Indiana's mismanaged. And I think that the way that because they have talent on the roster, and I know Malik Renault's out, but I feel like Indiana's being mismanaged. And I think that was really part of the problem in the Illinois game. Of course, you have the effort issue. Of course, you have intensity issues. And of course, you have a team that doesn't quite have a winning culture right now, partially because everybody is new. It's a conglomeration of transfers in some ways. And Mike Woodson hasn't necessarily done the best job doing more with less, right? His successful seasons were filled with guys like Jalen Hood-Schifino, for example. Those star players are going to go to the NBA. This is an IU team that doesn't necessarily have any NBA guys on it. And you don't need NBA guys to win in college. If there's anything we've learned, if Loyola Chicago could go to the Final Four, right, really anybody can. And even if you look at Purdue, just on the north side of the state, that's a team that, to me, doesn't really have necessarily very many NBA guys. Braden Smith maybe, but Purdue's roster right now doesn't look like it's NBA has NBA talent on it. Indiana doesn't either. That's totally fine. You don't need that necessarily to succeed at the collegiate level. This team is built to succeed in the backcourt, and this is the number one point I'm going to bring up in this segment. Indiana is built to succeed in the backcourt. They have one true great big in Amar Ballo. That's really their only guy, which is fine. That's a totally acceptable way to build a team. Have one key center and build out a great backcourt. That's kind of what Purdue's doing, right? Trey Keffin-Wren is really the only big man on the team that can really succeed, especially now that Jacobson is hurt. But they've got a backcourt that is loaded with sharpshooters. Braden Smith, Fletcher Loyer, CJ Cox. I don't want to just compare the two teams, but I think there are parallels. Illinois bullied Amar Ballo down low, right? They really focused on the front court. And that's fine because if Illinois is scoring down low, that can be compensated by great shooting outside from that backcourt that Indiana has sort of built their team around. But they shot 38.5% from the field, and they were 4 for 18 from 3. I think they were 0 for 14. They were certainly 0 for something in double digits at a point in this game, right? So this team is built on their backcourt. Their backcourt is where their talent is outside of Amar Ballo. Their front court is not where they should be winning games, but Amar Ballo really has been the only consistent player all year. He's been putting up double-doubles game after game after game. And even if there's lapses defensively, if there's issues defensively, Indiana on offense doesn't have the production from the backcourt that they should, and they spent so much focus on the backcourt in the offseason. And what's so frustrating is how hyped up this team was in the preseason. If we knew this team was going to be bad, it'd be a different thing. But this roster, again, had a ton of hype. The talent on this roster was chalked up to be a top 20 team, and they were a top 20 team in the AP poll preseason. And its backcourt and its shooting ability was really what this transfer class and recruiting class was chalked up to be successful at. And in some ways, they left the front court kind of as the weaker area of the floor. They just said, all right, we'll bring in Amar Ballo, we'll put him down there, we'll let him figure it out. Again, that's totally fine if you're shooting well and if you have good backcourt play, and Indiana just doesn't. They can't put up good shots, and the ones they do put up, it feels like they miss. The backcourt has just been absolutely atrocious in these two blowout losses to Iowa and Illinois. And Amar Ballo is not going to be able to win the game on his own down low, even if he's one-on-one with another big man down there and there's no one else really penetrating the blocks. Amar Ballo still is not going to be able to win the game on his own down there. Therefore, because of that mismanagement of the fact that, again, their talent is in the backcourt, they're putting their focus on the backcourt, and it's just not prevailing. It's not working. And that's part of why the Indiana Hoosiers are objectively a bad basketball team right now. The other issue to me is depth, and this happens when you take a ton of transfers. If you build a starting five through the transfer portal, you might not have a lot of depth. And right now, after Malik Reneau got hurt, it feels like IU doesn't have a true fifth starter, right? There's very little depth on this team. There's no one behind Amar Ballo that can come in and really, truly succeed, right? It doesn't feel like they have a fifth starter. Mbako Mackenzie Mbako, has had 10 total points as a starter since January 5th. Since January 5th in those 3 games, he's had 4 points, 0 points, and 6 points. That's horrific. He's been shooting horrifically as well, of course, those 3 games. Trey Galloway is not consistent at all. He could drop 10 in a game. He can drop 0 in a game. That's both happened in the last month. Nothing for this team has been consistent at all, especially since the injury of Reneau, besides Amar Ballo, and he's left to fend to himself. It's completely shameful, in my opinion, for Indiana, the way they are, and the fact that this program in the Big Ten at all, but this historical blue blood program in the Big Ten, they're performing this way. I think it's shameful. What really stresses me out for them is the upcoming stretch of the schedule. There's an outcome in the world where IU only wins really one more conference game, and if you want to look at their next 7, they have, I would say, an easier stretch on the way. They go to Ohio State. They'll play that game on Fox. It's either on Friday or Saturday night. They go to Northwestern, and they host Maryland. I think at Ohio State is an instant loss. I think Maryland at home is an instant loss. Maryland's been playing well. Maybe they go to Northwestern and win. I guess at the end of the day, they went to Penn State and won, so Indiana really could be capable of anything. But that's their first stretch. And then they go at number 17 Purdue, at number 23 Wisconsin, versus number 20 Michigan, and at number 12 Michigan State. They play 4 ranked teams in the Big Ten, 3 of them on the road after a 3-game streak that I don't even think they're going to come out of above 500 in the confines of that 3-game stretch. So Indiana's got a real difficult group of tests coming up, right? They have a real difficult time on the way. Purdue, Wisconsin, Michigan, MSU, Ohio State, Northwestern, Maryland. Mike Woodson is maybe facing potentially losing his job in that 7-game stretch. I would not be surprised if IU makes a head coaching change in the middle of the year. And I think this 7-game stretch is where it could happen. After that MSU game, if they win one game or less, then obviously the season's over. But certainly there's going to be some major questions about the future of Indiana. Mike Woodson has been in Indiana for 4 years, 76 and 45, 2 NCAA tournament appearances in his first 2 years. But again, think about the NBA talent that they had on those teams. Sure, maybe if they were recruited by him, that's one thing. But he hasn't been able to do more with less in the era of the transfer portal, in the era of NIL, and then the era of maybe IU not having a clear NBA guy on the team. Mike Woodson and really just hasn't been able to put a team on the floor that's capable of further success past the first 2 years of his tenure. So what's got to change, right? There's got to be a more intense and driven culture. They understood that about the football program. They bring in Cignetti, and look what happened after that. You need a new look. You need a new feel. You need a new appeal to recruits and transfers. When you look at IU and you need to think something different than what you're looking at right now, you have to make IU a place for winning, right? Right now, it feels like an NBA fast track because Mike Woodson has ties to the NBA. That's part of the pitch to recruits, right? Is if you come here, you can be like Trayce Jackson-Davis, you can be like Jalen Hood-Schifino. And I feel like we do have a sense of personal success being the driver for some of these players. Let's make it a place for winning basketball games. Let's make it a place for winning basketball championships again. Recruit and then build a philosophy around your guys. They have talent, but I just don't think they're using it the right way. And if they continue to bring in talent, as they probably will because they are IU, you have to use that talent in the correct way. They haven't been recently. It worries me for the future, and I'm interested to see if IU and Mike Woodson, especially under Mike Woodson, if they're able to make anything happen following this.